Good morning and welcome to Coffee Time with Kauffman, the comfortable place to talk about women's leadership. Today, I am interviewing Hannah Kain as we discuss the power mix, Silicon Valley innovation, supply chain, and vision. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
So happy to have you on the show. Hannah Kain is president and CEO of ALOM, a supply chain company she founded in 1997. ALOM operates out of 19 global locations to support its Fortune 500 customers in the technology, automotive, medical, financial, and energy sectors. Hannah was born in Denmark, where in addition to a business and political career, she taught at Copenhagen Business School. Hannah holds 3 university degrees. Hannah is a board member of National Association of Manufacturers and WBEC-Pacific. She is the board chair of How Women Lead Silicon Valley. She serves on the WBEC Forum Leadership Team, the Advisory Council of Heritage Bank, and is a member of the Committee of 200. Recently, Hannah was named an SDCE 2022 Supply Chain Pro to Know and a 2021 WBEC Top WBE CEO. In 2020, she was named a Business Insider Top 100 People Transforming Business, recognized as a top 10 women in logistics, and won the SDCE Women Leaders in Supply Chain Award. Prior awards include WBEC-Pacific Pinnacle Award, Gold Woman of the Year, Stevie, Top 25 Champion of Diversity in STEM, Manufacturing Institute Step Ahead Award, YWCA Tribute to Women Award, and induction into the Silicon Valley Capital Club Hall of Fame. Before we get into the power mix, Silicon Valley innovation, supply chain, and vision with Hannah Kain. My name is Maria Kauffman, and I'm a life coach. And today I'm drinking some tea. What are you drinking, Hannah?
I'm drinking coffee. I thought, I'm a CEO. Normally, I don't follow directions, but since it's coffee with Maria, I thought I had to do coffee. So, yeah, it's real coffee.
And it's a beautiful teacup. Oh, my goodness. Hannah, such a pleasure to have you on the show. Certainly amazing accolades. Help us get into what was some of the earliest, signs of genius, I'll say, that got you on this amazing journey to where you are today.
You have me all blushing here, reading up all that words. I've been so blessed over my career. So I started up out in Denmark. I was born in the town of Odense, which is the town of Hans Christian Andersen, the Danish fairy tale author, and he makes up stuff. I deal with reality. So when I was about 4 years old, I started a small venture with my brother, and my dad didn't like what we were doing, so he shut it down. But it was all good. But very early on, I got very interested in business and the different aspects of business, and so I really dabbled very early on. And when I was a teenager, I was dreaming of starting my own business. It was all about doing, those type of things. I was not thinking about Prince Charming or whatever. Later, I did get married, and so I'm always saying that's icing on the cake. But I'm very happily married for a very long time. But that was not what I dreamt about when I was a teenager. It was always running my own company.
Business came first. I love to hear it. It was natural. What do you think some of your influences were that got those business juices going?
Well, I think I was fascinating with what was going on between people. Also, my dad, who was a college professor on the side, did some business, so I was very interested in working with him on that, and started when I was about 11, keeping the books for him, and started interfacing with the CPA and things like that. And I remember he was probably at that time a very traditional CPA, and he came for a physical meeting and realized he had been dealing with this preteen girl all the time, and not maybe a super professional bookkeeper. So, but yeah, it was all good. But I think sort of my dream, the basic for my dreams, and some of the things that drive me also comes from my dad, right? So my dad was a concentration camp survivor. He fled Germany to survive. He came to Denmark. Unfortunately, he was one of the few people in Denmark who was captured by the Nazis and ended up in concentration camp, and was actually on the day the camp was slated for actually got liberated. He was slated to be executed and had been tortured, and so and of course his entire family was eradicated, and so he had a very tough youth and a very tough start in life, and coming back to Denmark, and again it was still a foreign language, and a little bit tenuous social network, and no family, and he did really well for himself, but he kept dreaming of what could have been. And as I grew up and kind of grasped that story, I said to myself, there's nothing holding me back. I can live my dream. I can do what I want to do. And my biggest fear, and people ask, what's your biggest fear? My biggest fear is sitting at the end of life and looking back and say, I wish I would have done it differently. Right? I mean, it's not a dress rehearsal. You only get one chance, right? So, how do you live your life, and do you really leverage who you are and what you can bring to the table, and work with people around you, and live your dreams? So that, I think, drives a lot of my decisions, and certainly the decision to immigrate was a big part of that.
Yeah, I could imagine. So it's inspiring to hear you talk, but at the same time, there is a bit of resilience, I imagine, that comes from that experience. So it sounds like your business acumen was kind of growing already on top of this fearlessness that must have come from some of the realities, of the experiences, the unfortunate experiences that the family had to go through.
Yeah, I think resiliency is actually it's probably the most important entrepreneurial trait, right? Is sticking with it and finding ways around things, and being resourceful and being determined, and all those things that go into to making things happen, and surviving, and going through tough times, and still keep a smile on your face, and moving forward.
Yeah, amazing. So help us understand then, what was that transition like for you during that time frame, as you're getting through those younger years to the point that you might do or decide to immigrate?
Well, so I went to university where I met my husband. I did a number of different things while I was at university. One of the things was I got involved in politics. I ran for parliament. I ran actually when I was fairly young, first time when I was 21, and almost got elected at that time. And
Wow.
yeah. Now I'm thinking back, people must really have believed in me to vote for me at age 21, right? And
Yes. Well, you
and
must have believed in yourself too. That takes a
I
lot of courage at that young age.
I did. And then, so I did different things in the political space, and it was very exciting. I mean, I got some really exciting opportunities out of it. It also helped shape me, because at a very young age, I got to hang with very influential and powerful people who were big leaders, great leaders, right? And that gave me the opportunity to learn. And I believe we can learn from everybody. I learn all the time. I learn from my staff members. I learn from my customers. I learn from my suppliers. Learn from my partners. I just learn all the time. And so, especially when you're young, I was just sucking up all this knowledge about how do you do things and how do you resolve conflicts and how do you do different things. So it really helped shape me and made me into, I think, a better person. And then I started my business career and was working first for a Swedish company, and then I was working for a financial conglomerate, and was helping. I was kind of in the entrepreneurial arm of that. I helped start a number of different companies. One point of time, we did a lot of company starts. So I was really excited about that. I also learned a lot from it. The good news was we had probably more money than most people who start companies, but that still, it didn't mean that you had to waste them, right? So waste
it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah. So and then my husband and I were kind of looking at the future. So I had a fairly nice position. He was a computer scientist. None of us felt that there was much of a future in Denmark. Denmark was sort of hitting a rock bottom when it came to business environment, etc. And so we were both pretty keen on immigrating. And in 1990, we bought the one-way ticket. And I think it was a little bit of a rough awakening for me, because I kind of had worked my way up in politics, and I was getting calls, several calls a week, whether I could be on boards, and multiple calls a day, whether I could do public speaking and things like that. And all of a sudden, the phone stopped ringing. Right? I'm like, why doesn't the phone? Oh, I immigrated, and so I had kind of an awakening and had a one-on-one with myself, saying, hey, you need to understand you're rebuilding your network and the environment you're working in, etc. So that was, I think if I had to do a thing over, and again, we don't get any redos, right? I might have immigrated a little bit earlier, but then again, you also learn things from what you have done in the past. So, it all worked out well. So I was 4 years on the East Coast, and my husband and I decided that we wanted to live in Silicon Valley. And in '94, we moved to Silicon Valley, and we've been here ever since.
Well, I have a couple questions for you. One was, as you were getting into those college years and choosing education, was there anything that stood out to you about that decision-making process of, what career to study and how you went down that path?
Oh, that was a very difficult decision for me, because I am, as you probably already figured out, pretty eclectic. I have a lot of interest. I like history. I like art. I like people. I like physical things. I like manufacturing. I like, so it was very hard for me to choose. At the time, genetics and DNA and that entire field was just in its very infancy, and I was very fascinated by it, and I was definitely thinking about studying that. It would probably have required me to move to Germany, and I was tentative on it, and I ended up studying more over in the economics, political science, political history type deal, and then business. So I never went the engineering biology route, but that was probably my runner-up.
Interesting.
And
So
and I did toss a coin. I ended up tossing a coin, but
it was a coin toss.
But I cheated. I cheated. And the way you cheat is when it's up in the air, you know what you really hope for.
Oh, I like that. That's awesome. So your heart's destiny is going to land where it needs to, regardless. I love it. And how about the decision for Silicon Valley? What drew you there?
Oh, it was the innovation, right? The technology, the innovation, the collaboration, the entrepreneurial spirit. What can I say, right? You know, it's this idea about creating something new and just powering through and making those things happen. And I think that also really tied into how I look at supply chain and what really has propelled the growth of ALOM, because supply chain is really won or lost on technology, right? So everybody's talking about technology, but the visibility and the ability to do the data flows and do a lot of different very critical back-end step in supply chain really totally dependent on technology. And it was one of the things that I worked on in the mid-90s was how technology, I had this vision for how technology could really power supply chain. And
wow.
And that was, so that was kind of, a cornerstone. And we invested very early on quite heavily in technology. We were probably the first one in the industry doing what today is called customer portals. Back then it was called extranets, right? And we, which the customers were just blown away. They could see their inventory, but they had an inventory with us, right? It was updated once a day.
Little on the slow side.
But at the time, it was pretty darn advanced, right?
Yeah, because you were doing it.
Yeah. And so, but that thinking about using technology for the business purpose and really having that be part of the driver and the innovation behind that, that still sticks with us. And I think it's been one of the major drivers for our success in the marketplace.
Yeah, talk about vision. I mean, to bring those things together and to create a portal early on just to give some information must have been really groundbreaking.
It was at the time. I mean, people first had to figure out how to get on the internet. Right? So today we're not thinking about those problems, but it was a real thing at the time.
Right. And I guess on some level, once you start to tease the information or the possibility of where it can go, then you must have people hooked.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, of course, that part of the reason why, so there was sort of a technical reason why so few people served up this data, but there was also another one, right? You're hanging out your dirty laundry. If something is wrong, people see it, right? And today we are used to seeing that also. I mean, we see it on social media. People do stupid things, they have had a drink and they do stupid things on social media, right? But also when it comes to data, right? Sometimes data is wrong, and you serve it up, people will go like, well, that is wrong, right? And so at the time it was like, well, if everybody was thinking we are going to fix it behind the scenes and nobody will know. And I was like, no, we need to make the data available. We need to share the data, and we need to, on the back end, run so clean and such a high quality level that the data is right.
That is so interesting that you can talk about it. It's like almost like a time capsule.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, like you look today and like out on social media, people are okay being any which way, right? But those early ideas of making sure the data has integrity
Yeah.
And just going through those mindsets probably could have, potentially held businesses back from being successful if you couldn't embrace the idea that, I'm going to do this step here and I'm going to, follow it through and make sure it goes in the right direction.
But
Awesome.
the flip side of that is also that we then got the discipline of this is how we are doing things, and that it's still helping us till this day, right? Because part of when we say set up a new customer, we do a new service, we're thinking about what's the data we need to share, and how does that look, and how we're capturing it, and what's the integrity of that data, and are we dependent on a third party to, and those type of things. So it creates that thinking and that discipline that's so important.
Yeah, thank you for talking about that because that is important. And I imagine depending on your team and your support system, it could go a couple different ways. What do you contribute to some of those early success roots that were starting to form as you were thinking about growing a business?
I think I've always been conscious about company culture, right? And how the culture, what's important in the culture. It's been a thing I've been talking about, but also, living, right? So you cannot do what I say, don't not what I do, right? Right? And, you need to live. So we are talking a lot about it, and the core values we have. When you become an employee of ALOM, on your first day, we'll share the values with you and talk about what that means. And I truly believe that it's like the map to the maze, right? It's how you get to be successful in the team, so of course there will always be people who are not aligned with the values, whatever, right? I'm hoping they're not making it through the vetting process. But once you're on the team, I believe everybody wants to be part of a team, right? They want to be part of and belong to something. And so everybody, once they understand how to navigate, they get very excited about it. And so our culture is very important to us. And I think culture, if I had to say one thing that will make people not successful at ALOM, it's when they're not culturally aligned, right? And that's how we deal with people, the respect and the inclusion, and our the way we are doing business, the integrity we have, some of those things, very, very important to the team. And of course there's been times where it's been challenging to stick to your guns, right? I mean, again, going back, if you want to do time capture, right after we started up, not a lot of money. We had made an error, we caught it internally, but we could have shipped it without. So some people started saying, oh, maybe we should just and I'm like, no, right? We are not doing that type of thing, quality is number one, right? And we start, so you've got to, in each situation, really do those symbolic firm stance, right? And and I heard this just because I heard two people arguing about it, right? I'm passing the conference room, I hear two people arguing about it. I just popped my head in and said, this company doesn't ship poor quality, right? And then I walked out.
Oh my gosh.
and so it's about sticking to your guns in those situations, right? And it was not that I didn't have sympathy for the guy who's like, this is a very small area and a very big cost, and we don't have the money and whatever, right?
Right.
But no.
Right. And that, well, in the, I'll say the day-to-day language, that is so true. Just stick to your guns, ethics. But truly, as I've kind of, I'll say, grown through the years, and I hear people talk about leadership. It's certainly a big thing, and that is leadership. It's in those moments where you do have to, stick to your guns and dig in and say, listen, we have to do this now, or else, things can go off the rails so much worse later.
Yeah, exactly. exactly.
Yeah, awesome. So this is a power mix. So innovation, certainly, Silicon Valley, it's almost like, how can you get away from innovation maybe at the time, but you're mixing, supply chain and vision. Tell us a little bit about vision.
Well, it's kind of fun because I had this vision when I started the ALOM that maybe you could produce and ship products same day all across the world. And I am not kidding you. People would look at me and it was clear I was off my rockers, right? That was like not happening. And so it's just been really exciting to be on this journey where today, it's not in many regions, it's not just happening, it's expected, right? And so I think the vision was to create a company that was really flexible. There were a couple of points, but I think agility, really being able to do things right and very fast, right? So high quality always first, but also very fast and in innovative ways across the world. Then it was, okay, can we create a supply chain company that does right by everybody? And when I say do right by everybody, I'm thinking suppliers, right? And lots of companies have actually been pretty abusive towards their suppliers for many years, and that came home to roost here during the supply chain crisis in 2020-21, right? It's because their suppliers were like, okay, we've got 200 customers, 10 of them are abusive, you're on the street, right? And then they didn't get supplies, right? And so if you treated your suppliers right, you were probably getting some of the first things off the line. The other good thing is you get the ideas from the suppliers, they'll bring you innovation and things like that. So actually companies that treat the suppliers right are way more profitable. But a lot of companies hadn't discovered that, right? They're sort of starting. And so that was part of treating the suppliers right. And then there's, of course, the customers, right? And one of the things we're always looking at is not just our customers, but their customers, and sometimes their customers, right? So in the end, it's about how do we get the product to them in the right configuration, in the right location, the right way, so that they are happy, right? And then it triggers back. Oh. And then the big thing, I think, is employees, right? And so also something that many companies undervalue, right, was the employee relations. And another thing we're still straightening this out as, in the business world, right? And so I believe that having these strong employee relations and doing right by the employees, and that is both, it's not that you're not accountable at ALOM, but there's also compassion, right? And trying to understand what each individual needs, and how we can support our staff members and how we can make them successful both in their jobs and as individuals, and being respectful of the individual. And so that's sort of been a core value, right? So this thing about doing right by everybody. And we already spoke about the technology and how to use the technology, and many people are talking technology, but I think part of what we are always looking at as part of our vision is technology needs to support the business mission.
Yeah, right? You're not going to use technology just to use technology. It's going to be strategic.
Yeah, exactly. And you need to understand what is it we're trying to achieve. Right? What's the end goal here, and how does technology fit into this? And maybe technology can drive the goal, or it can be supportive of the goal, but how does that fit in? So those are part of the visions that we're working on, right, all the time, is how can, and then along the doing right by everybody. Of course, the other thing is it's also the planet, right? And that has been part of our vision for a very long time. It's and we have a really strong ESG program because we are very committed to doing right by the planet, and especially in supply chain, where we are moving so many things, we're packing them, so we have a big impact on the footprint, and so we are certainly taking that very seriously. And one of the things I'm very proud of is our staff members, how many ideas they come up with, and how it's really, I mean, this is not a movement which is, okay, here's Hannah's pet peeve, and we've got to think about how we, no, this is a movement coming up through the ranks of ALOM with fantastic ideas all the time. So we constantly have new ideas we're working on, and improving how we are interacting with the environment.
Oh my gosh, Hannah, that was so jam-packed with powerful vision. So we started talking just about vision, but I got the sense as you were talking that not only from the employees and the suppliers and the customers and the things that are shipping around the globe, it sounds like you are infusing everything you do into in a compassionate way into what you do. And it's like bigger than the business, because it affects the whole world.
Well, it's very values driven, right? And I think that's maybe, I mean, when we talk about the bigger vision, right? This thing about really valuing the values, right? And thinking deeply about what it is we are doing, how we are impacting others, how we can be successful, and those type of things, and then putting it into values that you verbalize, right? You're not just thinking them in the head, or sort of like, I would see whether it's right or wrong, and you're explicit about it, and then aligning everybody around it. I think that's really the bigger vision.
Yeah, and it comes through in how you talk about that, because when I first asked, I thought, well, being so deeply rooted in the value as you create the vision, I can see now how it is so sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine that there's a little bit of, every quarter, every year, things are trugging along and you're kind of keeping pace. But when you're so deeply rooted in that vision with those powerful values, I can see how you stay the course.
Yeah. So we do actually a business plan that we share with all staff members, and it's got our values on there. It's got our vision, it's got our 3-year plan, it's got our 1-year plan, and it's got the plan for the quarter. And then it's got some of the key statements that we are working towards. And so, yeah, it's and that's shared with all employees. So that's part of what you get on day 1 or day 0 when you start at ALOM. And then of course we update it all the time. So yeah, it's exciting.
Cool. So tell me about life outside of business. What's support and friendship in the Silicon Valley. What have you been able to reap the rewards of throughout your time there?
I think it's not just what I have gotten rewards of. It's sort of being part of the community, right? So anytime you're part of a community, you give and you take, right? And so and sometimes giving is more gratifying than taking, right? And yeah, there's been a lot of things that I'm really grateful for here. So I'm involved in a lot of women's courses, as you kind of indicated when you went with some of my background allowed, right? So we are working on getting more women on boards. We're in how women lead, getting more investments to women entrepreneurs. I'm also very involved in the overall WBENC community. So WBENC stands for Women Business Enterprise National Council. And there's also a local here in Silicon Valley called WBEC-Pacific. And there's one where we have our other US facility in Indiana called Great Lakes. Greater Women's Business Development Council, so I'm very involved in these entities, and that means that certainly I get the benefit from it, but I also get the opportunity to give back to other women entrepreneurs, and that just feels fantastic.
It must feel fantastic.
Then of course, I'm part of the National Association of Manufacturers and the entire manufacturing community. And I feel that has been super gratifying, right? I think it's very important that there's US manufacturing and that we make each other successful. And that's part of what we do through that. And so really love those networks I'm part of, and being part of growing other people around me and seeing that they're successful, and certainly getting benefits from that. And as you mentioned, I'm in C200. C200 is for executive women and invitation only. So it's a really fantastic network. So I mentioned that I'm a lifelong learner. I learn from everyone, and I learn from my C200 friends every single day. So phenomenal women.
That's so powerful. So, at some point you had mentioned that you noticed, that the phone had stopped ringing, but it sounds like it must not have stopped for too long.
No, it's right that, and I think that was part of moving to Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is very inclusive, right? And that's, so I know that there's been a lot of talk about how women are not very accepted in Silicon Valley. And I think that is correct when it comes to funding. But I don't think, I always felt very included and very welcome in Silicon Valley. And that has been a fantastic feeling to come in and get this powerful network of people in Silicon Valley, and incredibly many people who are supportive of each other. And so I must say that I have gotten so many contacts and friends throughout Silicon Valley. I really love the network here and the support of each other. So yeah, that has been a fantastic and is a fantastic experience.
Right. Awesome. Any advice you would give anyone, either for business, women in underrepresented, communities, either at work or anything, help us to ride on the coattails of your amazing success?
Oh, I think a couple of things. I think you need to be really determined to do things, right? And set out and really think about what you want to do and how you can go about it, but don't try to do it alone, right? And that is find people who have been on the journey, who lend you a hand. And sometimes it doesn't need to be like, I want to talk with you once a week and, type mentorship or whatever. It can actually just be one conversation that can change your trajectory. I've for many years worked with a coach. I think that was fantastic, right? You have somebody who's not invested in your business, but they are invested in your success, right? And but on your premises. And I think that's the beauty of working with a coach. So if you can afford a coach, I would recommend that. And then, the one thing I see people start up businesses and doing wrong is they're saying, oh, I don't have so much money, so I need to hire whatever is the cheapest person coming around, or, a family friend. And then they start not performing because they're not really professional. They don't really know what they're doing, right? So then the founder goes, oh, he or she doesn't work out. I cannot trust anybody but myself. And that means that they cannot grow, right? So in order to be successful, you really need to hire top-notch talent you want to fight for. And so my advice is find a way to do that. Then there are different ways of thinking about it. You can either find the money to do it, right? You can do with fewer people. You can try to see if you can get them to work fewer hours or help you on a part-time basis or something, but get that talent in where you feel you can really let go and you get some really competent help. And then think about also what holds you back. And so we all have things where we are going, oh, there's imposter syndrome that a lot of people have talked about. There are other things that can hold you back, and think about how you're held back. It could be your spouse or your kids holding you back. It could be your parents holding you back. And think about either having a conversation with them about, or just breaking loose of the chains and figuring out a way to maintain the relationship and still do what you want to do, but do it on your premises, right? So part of being successful is looking at being the CEO of your own life and figuring out, okay, I can actually do things, right? I can actually break loose from some of the habits or things or that are holding me back. And then the other thing I like to play games with myself, right? So I'm sort of thinking about okay, what is it I really want to do, and what's holding me back? And then I'm thinking, so this is like a bigger thought process. And then I'm also thinking each day, what would I really like to get out of today? What is success? What's the most important thing I can do for my company today? What's the most important thing I can do for myself? So my staff members are always laughing that I take long showers, because that's typically in the shower I start thinking about those type of things. And I don't want it on my epitaph saying, oh, she cleaned up her inbox every day, right? So yeah, right? So what is it that's really important to get done today and tomorrow, and what are the priorities, and being clear in your mind about what the priorities are, right? And being willing to sometimes not be the best liked person, and especially women tend to want to be liked and play by the rules and things like that. But and certainly certain rules, you wonder if there's a stop sign. Yes, I'm stopping, right? But maybe not in business, right?
Yeah, right.
At that time you go a little bit like, is this important or is it not important? Is this something I should do or I shouldn't do, right? So I think that frees up your thinking a lot to do what's really important, right?
Yeah.
So, and getting it down to basics, and so stick to your gut.
Yeah, I love all of this. It's very, very powerful. And I would say, I too, like when I'm in that flow of feeling like I'm in this, that I have that sovereignty of my own life. And it does have a sense of a powerful feeling to it. But yeah,
and I was saying this thing was sticking to my gut, that I paid dearly for my gut. I made a lot of mistakes. I learned a lot, and I paid dearly to have my gut feeling. And I go with my gut feeling.
Yeah, awesome. That is so, so powerful. So I got such a sense of, what those day-to-days can be. Just, once again, just sticking to yourself and believing in yourself and the confidence that can come.
But also, I think living a life where, so I committed to living a life of no regrets, right?
Right.
And I think that is also part of feeling good about how you do things. So, I'm always looking at, are we doing the right things? And are we doing the things the right way? Right? So those are two different ways of looking at it. So they're doing the right things are really important, figuring out what's important in life, what's not important in life, what makes you successful, what's maybe not so important today, right? And so those type of things. But then it's also figuring out the process and how you do. And women tend to be very process oriented, right? For us, the process is really important, and sometimes over exaggeratedly important, right? As we are working in an environment where everybody is included, thinking about what different ways people operate and getting everybody aligned and pulling on everybody's strengths, right? We all bring strengths to the table, and how can we pull on people's strengths and really leverage that? And that includes my own strengths, right? I'm always thinking about what is it I really bring to the table here, as opposed to things that are really where I just wing it, right?
Right. Well, you just had a huge 25-year celebration. So congratulations to you and everything that must have gone into that. So what can you tell us about the possibilities of what can happen the next 25 years?
There's a lot. So there's a lot of things going on in the business environment right now, and many of them I'm really excited about. So the entire thinking about inclusivity, I think, is really important. I think the big reset that has been happening over the last couple of years with inclusivity and trying to create alignment while you have a very diverse workforce, etc., is really key. A lot of people have not figured out how to do the alignment and having the diversity at the same time. I think that's going to be something that many leaders are going to be struggling with over the next decade. And I think that leaders who really understand how to manage through that, but also manage a workforce in an inclusive and compassionate manner, are going to be very successful. And we are actually seeing it right now in that companies with more inclusive leaders are more successful in the marketplace. And I think that's going to continue. So if you are a jerk at work, right, then people will quit, right? And employee turnover is really the bane of a company, right? And I think we've seen it in some areas, and you're probably experiencing the same. Many places the service level has gone down a lot, right? And it's not necessarily that the employees are not there, but they started yesterday, right? And they don't know how the systems work or what to say or whatever. And sometimes they're just making it up because, there's nobody they can ask. And, and so employee turnover really is killing businesses. And so if you can figure out how to have those employee relations, really important. And of course, for companies, so my company is about 2/3 of our employees are on site and a third are remote of different types, right? So we're running a true hybrid environment. I think companies need to figure out how to run these type of environments, otherwise, and give everybody reasonably flexibility, right? I think employees have started thinking more about, I have a whole life, right? I have, and what I see really is many of my employees are in the sandwich generation, right? Where they have kids, no problem. We have some infrastructure for that. The big trip up right now is the older generation. Right, and how, but also because there's just not enough infrastructure to handle that, right? thinking about that and understanding the situation employees are in really important. And so that's sort of on a more general basis. I still think collaboration is a key key parameter for success in the business world. Certainly, supply chain is a collaborative sport, right? So,
Right.
but I think all businesses are really, for all businesses, it's really about collaboration and being able to pull people together, also with very short notice, maybe, right, of a very limited project, and having everybody gel together and work towards goals, etc. Very key, right?
Ooh.
Also globally, right? This is a global, and so you now get language barriers and cultural barriers, etc. But how can you pull people together? And so it's collaboration is one of our core values. It's something we've been working on for many years, decades, right? And it's a core competency. And so it means that we can move really fast because we have those collaboration tools and the thinking about how can we bring projects to completion and those type of things. And then I think, again, the globalization, right? The globalization started, I think we are not going to, there's a lot of talk about stopping globalization and being more nationalistic and stuff. I'm not seeing that happening, and the numbers don't support that it's happening, right? So certainly there's some reshoring going on of manufacturing, etc. But I mean, it's going to continue to be a global world, and figuring out a way. What I hope for the world is peace, right? That we figure out a way to live in peace with each other. But since there are so many conflicts, being able to navigate them and understand them. So I think you cannot be in business anymore if you don't understand the big picture, because we are also impacted by wars and disruptions and things like that. And certainly in supply chain, understanding the geopolitics becomes very key to being able to secure uninterrupted supply and those type of things. And then I've got to say technology, right? And using technology smartly, and I mean, in supply chain, companies have been tripped up from having old legacy systems that don't. So when you think about having a system, and what does a system do, right? As I said, we start with thinking about the business. What is it we're trying to achieve? But when you're looking at, okay, what does technology do? The technology is really a picture. When you install a system, it has a picture of the world. And that picture of the world is overlaid onto your company and your business systems, right? So, for instance, my best example, easiest example on what supply chain is doing is, so in the old days when you installed the system, you said, okay, I have a widget I'm doing, and that widget, I'll show my lipstick. So this is a widget, right? And that widget has a lead time. Right, and I put in that lead time. It takes 45 days from my order till it's at my warehouse. Right?
Okay.
All of a sudden, we see these fluctuations. Now the lead time is no longer a number; it's a guess, and it fluctuates daily. Right? So that idea of the world being a stationary place no longer is correct. Right? And so understanding how the world is shifting and what does your systems do, because all of a sudden the systems become a constraint and everybody goes, well, we said 45 days, now it's 120, and yesterday it was 103, and tomorrow it's 150. We need to put this into a spreadsheet, right? Then you die. Right? If you've got 5,000 part numbers and you've got to not happening, right? So having those type of more more versatile, agile systems that are reflective of what the actual world is. And that, if there's one good thing in supply chain that came out of the supply chain crisis, and there are actually several, but one really good thing was the investment in supply chain technology. And I think, so I'm very focused on supply chain, but in businesses in general, this is going to be much more, systems are going to have to be much more dynamic, dealing with this changing world we live in. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for the commentary, because you help connect some of these technology challenges with, these real world and real human aspects too, collaboration, peace, bringing that compassionate value, but, figuring out how we're all going to live on this planet together at the same time with these connections. Hannah, it's been so amazing hearing all of your wisdom and just seeing the smile on your face and seeing how energetic and positive you are. Certainly I imagine there's been challenges along the way. I thank you so much for all that positivity that you bring. Is there an inspirational quote that you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, some years back, the Manufacturing Institute did a campaign, and it really resonated with me. It was "Dream it, do it." And the reason I like it is you've got to dream. You've got to think about both your vision, the vision for the world, what impact are you going to have in the world, and those type of things. But it's not enough to dream. You also need to do it, and you need to execute on it, and you need to execute well. So dream it, do it.
Simple yet powerful. In this conversation about the power mix, that could not have ended any more perfect. Hannah, I will certainly leave your contact information in the show notes. And I just want to thank you so much for being such a lovely guest and for sharing all of your wisdom and your insights with the audience.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Coffee Time with Kauffman is the comfortable place to discuss women's leadership, because I am on a mission to help the world discover the truth about what women are capable of. When you are ready for your leadership mastery makeover, go to mariakaufman.com and click on Consult a Coach, where you can schedule time with me for an empowerment session. Have a great week. Enjoy your adventures and journey responsibly. Thanks, Hannah.